"Sir, can I ask you something strange?" The billionaire looked up, eyebrows raised. "Did you always have that birthmark on your hand?" He nodded, casually. "Since I was born." "Why?" She hesitated. Her heart raced. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Because, my mother said my father had the same one." In that moment, time stopped. She wasn't just a waitress anymore. She was a daughter searching for the truth, and staring into the eyes of the man who never knew she existed. No DNA. No last name. Just a memory, and a birthmark that matched the one on her own child's hand. But what happened next? It would uncover decades of silence, a lost love, and a second chance that no one saw coming. If you love powerful real-life folktales and emotional fiction like this, don't forget to subscribe to Folktales by Lisa, where every story speaks straight to the heart. "Mom, why don't I have a dad like the other kids?" Lisa's question came out of nowhere. The sound of her soft voice cut through the evening silence like a thread unraveling an old wound. Cassandra stood by the sink, her hands submerged in warm soapy water. Her back stiffened. She didn't turn right away, she couldn't. The question had always loomed in the background, hiding in bedtime stories and unfinished explanations. But now, her daughter was 12. And old enough to demand real answers. "Why do you ask, baby?" she finally replied, her voice calm but tired. Lisa shrugged, still clutching the corner of her sketchpad. "At school, everyone made Father's Day cards today. Mrs. Johnson asked me who mine was, and I didn't know what to say. I said he died. Was that wrong?" Cassandra dried her hands slowly, grabbing the towel from the counter. She walked over and sat beside her daughter on the worn sofa, their one-bedroom apartment filled with the familiar smell of old books and lavender oil. "No, it's not wrong," she said gently, brushing a strand of hair from Lisa's face. "You told your truth. He's not gone. But he's not here either." Lisa looked up at her with wide, questioning eyes. "So where is he?" Cassandra sighed and leaned back. Her fingers trembled as they reached for the small drawer in the side table. From it, she pulled out a faded photo, the edges curled, the image weathered. In it stood a young, dashing man in a crisp suit with silver-streaked hair and a crooked smile. "This is Richard," she said, handing the photo over. "Your father." Lisa stared at it, her brows furrowing. "He looks nice. Why did he leave?" There it was, the question Cassandra had practiced answering 1,000 times but could never quite say out loud. "He didn't leave by choice. He never even knew you were born." Lisa looked confused. "But how?" Cassandra's voice grew tight, her eyes misting. "When I told his family I was pregnant, they cut me off. Said he was too important, too busy for distractions. I was just a girl from the South Side. They didn't think I was good enough. They made sure he never saw me again. I tried to call. I wrote letters. But every door slammed shut." Lisa's eyes dropped to the man's hand in the photo. "What's that red spot?" Cassandra smiled faintly, touching her daughter's hand. "That's a birthmark. Big and red, looked like a rose. You have his hands, baby. And his eyes." Lisa's voice was barely a whisper. "Would he recognize me?" "Maybe," Cassandra said, her voice cracking. "But maybe, you'll recognize him first." That night, Lisa lay in bed staring at the photo. The man with the rose on his hand. Her father. Not a fantasy, not a ghost, but someone real. Someone out there. She didn't know how, or when. But she knew one day, she'd find him. Years had passed since that conversation with her mother, but Lisa never forgot the man with the rose-shaped birthmark. She had grown into a quiet, observant young woman, graceful under pressure, resilient without showing it. After Cassandra's death from breast cancer 2 years earlier, Lisa had carried the weight of silence, sorrow, and survival alone. To pay her college tuition, she'd taken a job at the Silver Fork, one of Chicago's most elite restaurants, the kind of place where hedge fund moguls, senators, and celebrities casually dined beneath crystal chandeliers and $1,000 bottles of wine. Lisa didn't belong there, but she made herself invisible, efficient, polite, precise. She didn't chase tips, she chased stability. And somewhere deep down, she was still chasing him. Every time a wealthy, older white man walked in, she couldn't help but glance at their hands. "Is it him?" she'd whisper to herself. None of them ever were. Until that Thursday night. The restaurant buzzed slightly louder than usual. Lisa was wiping down table 9 when she heard the manager whisper near the host stand. "That's Richard Grant, yes, that Richard Grant. He booked the private table." Her entire body froze. The name struck her like a jolt. Her heart began to thump, not from excitement, but from something more ancient, instinct. Lisa turned, slowly, deliberately. And there he was. Richard Grant. Older now, but unmistakable. Same sharp jawline, same storm gray hair, swept back with careful polish. He walked like he owned the room, because in many ways, he did. The billionaire media mogul, the face of empires, the man her mother once whispered about with a trembling smile. He moved toward the corner booth, trailed by 2 assistants. The maitre d' pulled out his chair. Lisa's knees almost buckled. She gripped her tray tighter. Her mind raced. That can't be him. Could it? Her section had already ended for the night, but she rushed to the floor captain. "Please, let me take table 11. Just for tonight." He frowned. "Why? That's VIP. You sure?" Lisa nodded. "Yes. Please." Moments later, she approached his table, notepad in hand, her apron neat, every breath measured. "Good evening, sir. May I take your order?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Richard didn't look up. "Just the steak. Rare. And a scotch." But as he handed her the menu, something happened. His left hand brushed the linen napkin, and that's when she saw it. The birthmark. Large. Crimson. Irregular at the edges like a spilled rose. Her vision blurred. Her breath caught in her throat. Her mother's stories rushed back like a flood. That birthmark. That hand. It wasn't just another customer. It was him. She couldn't move. The tray trembled in her hands, and her breath grew shallow. Lisa stared at his hand, the deep red birthmark on the back of it, large and unmistakable. Just as her mother had described. Just as she had imagined 100 times over. It was him. She swallowed hard and tried to pull herself together. "You're just a waitress. A waitress doesn't speak unless spoken to. A waitress doesn't interrupt a billionaire's dinner. A waitress doesn't say, 'You're my father.'" But this wasn't just any table. This wasn't just any man. And she wasn't just a waitress tonight. "Sir," she said softly, her voice cracking despite herself. Richard looked up, eyebrows raised, surprised, but not impolite. "Yes." Her lips parted. Words formed in her mind but clung to the edge of her throat. She took a shaky step forward. "Your hand," she said, motioning slowly, carefully, like the words themselves were fragile. "You have a birthmark. Right there." He followed her gaze, glancing down at his hand. "Yeah. Had it since birth." "Why?" he asked, tilting his head. Her heart was pounding so hard, she thought he might hear it. "My father had the same one," she whispered. A pause. The kind that makes time itself hold its breath. Richard's brow furrowed. I'm sorry." She nodded, eyes glassy. "You dated Cassandra Brooks." Nearly 30 years ago. She was a nurse's aide from the South Side. You met at a fundraiser. His face froze. The silver in his hair seemed duller under the weight of her words. He slowly sat back in his chair, stunned. One hand dropped to his lap while the other, the one with the birthmark, trembled. Cassandra, he said, almost to himself. She disappeared. Her father told me she moved. That she didn't want to see me again. Lisa stepped closer, her voice growing firmer. She never moved. She stayed. And she raised me, alone. She died 2 years ago. Still wondering why you never came back. Richard's mouth parted, but no words came out. He reached again for his glass, but this time not to sip, to steady his hand. Wait, he said slowly. You're saying, you're her daughter? She nodded. Yes. Tears formed in the corner of his eyes. He blinked, dazed. And, your name? Lisa. His voice dropped into a whisper. Lisa, he repeated, almost reverently. My God. In that moment, nothing around them mattered. Not the clinking silverware, not the murmuring guests, not the polished chandeliers overhead. There was only a girl with the courage to speak. And a man staring into the face of a lifetime he never knew he missed. Richard Grant was known as a man of power, unshakable, poised, decisive. But in that moment, he looked like a man unraveling. His lips parted as he stared at Lisa, trying to piece together the years he never lived. His voice, once commanding, came out small. She had a daughter. My daughter. Lisa didn't blink. Yes. And she named me after her favorite flower, lilies. The ones you used to bring her when you visited the hospital. His breath caught. He leaned back in his chair, his mind spinning like the city lights outside the restaurant's window. Cassandra. I loved her. You need to know that. I would have married her. But her father. He threatened to ruin my career. Said she wasn't fit for my world. I thought she had moved on. I wrote to her, but everything came back undeliverable. I thought she was gone. Lisa clenched her hands together. She wasn't gone. She was abandoned. She raised me cleaning hospital floors and working 2 jobs. Not because she had to, but because she had no choice. The words hit him like bricks. The guilt sank into his shoulders. You're angry, he said softly. I was, she replied. For a long time. Every birthday, every school recital, she was there. You weren't. I imagined you every day. Sometimes I thought you were dead. Other times. I thought you just didn't care. Richard shook his head, eyes brimming. No. I cared. God, I cared so much. But I was weak. I let my father control everything. He told me walking away would protect her. That staying would destroy both our lives. I was a coward. Lisa's voice cracked. You missed her funeral. She was buried in a small plot with no headstone. I couldn't afford one. He closed his eyes, and a tear fell, silent, unannounced. The billionaire who built empires was now a man drowning in regret. I missed everything, didn't I? He asked. She nodded. My first steps. My first heartbreak. My college graduation. She used to keep a journal, letters to you. I found them after she died. He placed his hand over hers gently, the one with the birthmark they both carried in memory. I know I can't change the past, Lisa. I'll never be able to give her back to you. But, if you'll let me, I want to be part of your life now. To know you. To earn whatever pieces you're willing to give me. She stared at the man she had searched for in dreams and photographs, her chest aching. And for the first time in her life, she saw not a ghost from her mother's past, but a man broken open by truth, and desperate to heal what had once been left for dead. "Then start by knowing this," she said quietly. "I forgive you. But you'll have to show up, for real this time." 2 weeks later, Lisa stood outside the doors of the Silver Fork, but this time, she wasn't wearing an apron. She was in a clean white blazer, her mother's favorite. Her hair was pulled back neatly, her chin lifted in quiet strength. Beside her, clutching her hand with innocent confidence, stood a little boy with curly hair, honey-brown skin, and big wondering eyes. "Mommy, are we really going to eat here?" he asked, looking up. Lisa smiled gently. "Yes, baby. But we're not just here to eat." They were led to the private dining area in the back, the same one where everything had changed just 14 days ago. And seated at the same corner table, dressed in a soft gray sweater this time, was Richard Grant. He stood the moment he saw her, but his eyes went straight to the child beside her. The room seemed to shrink as time stood still. Lisa knelt beside her son and whispered, "Michael, do you remember the man I told you about? The one with the mark on his hand?" Michael nodded slowly. She took his small hand and walked him over to the table. Richard's voice cracked before he even spoke. His eyes were already glistening. "He has it," he said softly. "The birthmark. Just like mine." Michael looked down at his own hand, then up at the older man. "Are you the man from the picture?" he asked. Richard knelt, meeting him at eye level, the powerful billionaire now on his knees in front of a child. "Yes, I am. And if your mommy says it's okay, I'd really like to get to know you. I missed a lot, and I don't want to miss any more." The boy looked to Lisa. She gave a small nod. Without hesitation, Michael stepped forward and wrapped his arms around Richard's neck. The older man broke. A tear rolled down his cheek as he held his grandson for the first time. It wasn't just a hug. It was forgiveness, healing, and rebirth all in one. Lisa stood nearby, watching the two most important men in her life finally meet. She could still hear her mother's voice in her heart, "Maybe, you'll recognize him first." She had. And that moment of courage had changed everything. Richard stood and looked at Lisa, this time not as a stranger or a waitress or a reminder of his past, but as his daughter. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for letting me try." Lisa smiled, tears gathering in her eyes. "Then don't waste it. We've lost enough time." And for the first time in years, she felt full, not because everything had been fixed, but because something broken had finally begun to mend. Sometimes the people we're meant to find don't come through open doors. They show up when you dare to speak. When you recognize not just a birthmark, but the pain, and possibility, behind it. Subscribe to Folktales by Lisa, where every story brings forgotten truths to light and turns pain into purpose.